Thank you so much for staying with us. You're watching Weekend Express, and as promised, on this side of the hour, we're going to talk about teenagers, what dangers they may be facing, particularly in this period now that we are heading towards the polls, and of course, what chances do they have in terms of accessing reproductive health care. And our guests are experts in this area. We have with us this morning Doreen Mora and Melvin Opio, and I'll allow them to just introduce themselves and tell us what they do in this particular space. And I'll start with you, Melvin.
Thank you, Trixie, for having us this morning. Good morning, viewers. My name is Melvin Ouyo. I'm a reproductive health and policy expert, currently working as a private consultant, and also I'm a founder of for Kenya Slum Adolescents Initiative, an initiative that works to empower young adolescents in the informal settlements. And what we do basically is we help them acquire skills that can support them to either get jobs or to start their own businesses. We also support some of the young mothers in the informal settlements to set up some businesses that can just support their social economic needs.
Okay. Now, Doreen, you are no stranger to this space and on social media, but of course, for those who have been living under rocks, tell them who you are.
My name is Doreen Mora Moracha. I'm a HIV and AIDS advocate, community development professional, as well as I work currently for the Global Network of People Living with HIV, and the founder of I Am a Beautiful Story, which is an initiative aimed at giving the correct information on matters HIV and sexual reproductive health using social media spaces.
Okay, now I'll start with Melvin. We're going towards the polls, and of course, young people, most of them will have closed schools, they'll be home. We know what happened during the coronavirus. The election period poses some specific challenges. What are the vulnerabilities that young adolescents face in periods such as this, particularly in slum areas?
Thank you, Trixie, for that question. So I just want to recall the case of what happened in Nakuru recently, where young girls were raped and even killed. And so unfortunately, they're also coming from the slum dwelling. And this is just a picture of what really happens among adolescents and young girls in the informal settlement. So one of the things, of course, we expect is that these girls are really vulnerable to men and young people who are also struggling with their social economic lives. And many times, because of course the politics, some of them have the mental issues that result as because they have the person rather they were voting for, or they have campaigned for a long period, did not get into the position that they really wanted them to get to. And because of that, we have a problem with so many young men and women in the informal settlements that really become a threat to the lives of young people. And unfortunately, we have said that young people must come out and engage in...
Wait. You've said something very unique, that there are people who have a lot of vested interest in politicians. And then what happens when these politicians don't sail through like they were hoping for?
So what happens is that, of course, there will be mental disruptions, you know, like people just become mad and just become aggressive. And that is what we see every time we have politics in this country, that whenever people fail to get into offices, their supporters start fighting each other simply because they have this poisoned mind that the person you want in office must be that person. Yet we are saying, what we are advocating for is that young people must engage in constructive conversations in terms of politics, and more so, young people have always said that they cannot be on the table if they're not invited. So politics is open for young people. They should get involved and then engage in healthy conversations around politics, so that they stay sober even post-election. And we have seen this happen most of the time during post-election. And
so the young people who are perpetrators, and they're those that are caught in the crossfire when people are upset.
But if we engage them politically, soberly, even post-election, they will be able to consolidate themselves and just engage in normal conversations and move on with the people that you have in the offices.
Right.
But one thing that I know is that even during this time, there are families that are struggling, and of course, because of even putting food on the table. And most of the people living in the slums, as we all know, are struggling to even to survive on less than $1 in most of the households. And so because of that, there is psychological trauma. People are struggling, and there are also issues of gender-based violence in some of those households that really put the young girls and young people to more or such vulnerabilities.
Okay, Doreen, I'd like you to tell us what you see as red flags for young people during this period.
So one of the things that I see as red flags during this election period is they are home. Home is a red flag.
Unto itself.
Like home is supposed to be a safe space for most young people, especially teenagers who are currently in school. So when they close, because the polls, most of our schools are used as polling stations, they come back home where GBV and SGBV are on the rise. And you know, during this election period, I usually feel like a lot of crimes, especially on SGBV, they get swept under the carpet because everybody is everywhere.
Yeah.
Law enforcement is trying so much to so they're overwhelmed. So walking into a police station and reporting a crime of rape, and sometimes it happens with a family member. So how do you report that? So most of them shy away, and that is why sometimes SGBV has so much stigma and so much shyness, and then people are like, no, I won't go. So the first red flag is home.
Yeah.
The second red flags are the teenagers themselves, because right now it's like it's all systems go, we can do whatever we want. And so in that process, it's almost the same thing that happened in 2020 when COVID was here, and all the kids were home. And then now there were parties, there are so much things going on social media, and then they decide we want to detox a little bit. So that detox is not really like a detox per se, it is more of indulging.
Yeah.
So when they indulge, a lot of things happen. They put themselves at risk of teen pregnancies, HIV, STIs, all of them. This whole time, we have parents, right now we know how the economy is. Parents are out there trying to ensure that we must have something at home. We don't know how the elections are going to be and all that. So they are trying as much as possible to gather whatever they can right now. And the kids are out there also living their best lives. Quote unquote, their best lives. So with all that going on, you find that the parents are not really keen on what the kid is up to. And then now everything just goes south. So this time itself is one huge red flag. And how do we protect the kids when they come back home? How do we protect them? Because nowadays every child, even a 3-year-old, can operate an iPhone. So how do we protect them that, yes, you're going to get this information, yes, you're going to get this anonymous house party call, but do you go? And if you go, because also Gen Z and going to parties, they have to go. So if you go, how do you protect yourself while there? Because there's the issue of being dragged at the party.
Sure.
Of course, sexual exploitation always comes in very highly. So them just coming back home, every time I hear schools have been closed, I get worried.
You get a bit worried. Now, Melvin, these are things that, like Doreen has said, that we saw before. They're not new. You work with young people in this space. Explain to us some of the changes. Has government come in and changed some things to ensure that they're protecting? Is there a more awareness or less, or is it status quo?
Yeah, thank you for that. So that question. So what has happened currently, as you know, is that the Ministry of Health is in the process of reviewing the adolescent and youth sexual and reproductive health policy in this country. And the reason they're reviewing the policy is because the policy must protect and give direction on the services and information that young people need to access. And so it is our hope that this policy will actually be very clear, come out with the very critical issues like protecting young girls against unplanned pregnancies.
Yeah.
The sad part is that we still find setbacks when it comes to even accepting that the young girls and boys are engaging sexually. And just like Doreen said, they are trying to
live their best lives.
To live their best lives, in quotes, at that age, you can imagine. And so my prayer today is that as we review the policy,
right,
we may articulate clearly and give the service providers and the advocates of SRH a clear direction of what needs to be happening. And there's this thing that we say, safe houses for adolescents who get pregnant.
Yes.
When you're taking these girls to the safe houses, do you consider that these adolescents who are living with parents and siblings who are used in a different environment, that you're withdrawing them from and taking them to a strange environment? And that in itself is a mental torture to the young girls. And secondly, I don't even believe that they will get the right information and the right services in the safe houses, safe places. And more so, I just want to imagine that we will have the policy really allowing service providers and the people in the space to provide the correct information. And when I say correct information, I mean age-appropriate information that will even be integrated into the curriculum, so that you have a grade 4 pupil getting the right information on SRH at that level. A grade, a lower, what is it called, lower secondary pupil or student getting the right information at that age, which will be, I guess, around 10 or 11 years. The sad part in this country is that we still bury our heads and refuse to accept that at 11 years old, an 11-year-old is having sex and can get pregnant. I recently interviewed one lady in Nakuru because of the case, what happened. And she was telling us how in her group, she has 2 11-year-old girls who got pregnant and were forced to give birth.
Wow.
And the trauma they went through, because the one girl says she left school to go and pick a pencil, which she didn't have. Then someone dragged her in the bush, and that's how she got pregnant.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
but then these are kids, these are 11-year-olds.
Yes.
That if this child knew that there are ways of preventing or seeking redress, getting medical help so that you don't get pregnant, you don't even get HIV, then you can do it. But minus that information, she became pregnant, right?
Yes.
So there is a need for education as far as that is concerned, whatever age, that's age appropriate, as you have said, Melvin.
Yes.
Now, Doreen, I'd like to hear from you. You've talked about seeking redress, and and polycare came into my mind. What is your view? What in your view is the benefit that is coming from that? And do you think that is going to create a difference in this particular period? Because unfortunately, it is anticipated that these cases of SGBV and GBV will go up. So do you hope that polycare is something that's going to help?
Yes and no.
Okay.
Yes, because it is a very good initiative, and so far I have seen it in a few police stations.
Yes.
So I am not sure whether it's been rolled across the country. So that is my first concern.
Yes.
The second concern is police are not known to be very friendly. For example, the 11-year-old who has been dragged. Imagine her walking to a police station and telling the person they get there that, hey, I was going home to get a pencil and somebody dragged me into the bush. Then they will start questioning and poking holes into your story. And so there is always that, it's like there's a kind of disconnect between the public and the, now and remember, this is not even like an adult.
Yeah,
this is an adolescent
who's already afraid.
So the first, I feel like for that to work very well, the trust has to start with the parent-child. So that the parent, because the parent knows better, and the parent knows that this has happened to my daughter, this has happened to my son. So now the next step is walking into a police station. They have the polycare. Then we are going to write the statement, do all that. Then they get assessed at the hospital. They get prevention services at the hospital, because this 11-year-old would not be pregnant if she actually had gone to seek more services. And it's something I was even telling Melvin, that we refuse to give them services, we refuse to give them information. So how do we expect to end teen pregnancies and new HIV infections if we are not even providing information? Like, forget about the services. You can say they're 15, they're a child, unless they have a parent. But what happens to this particular child who has the right information, who knows that if somebody violates me, and I talk to my parent, then there is a service in the police station called polycare that we can go and actually report. So in this, it is going to help. I believe it should help during this time. But also let us know that it's also an overwhelming time.
Yes.
So let us not leave the role to just the policemen or the policewomen that these ones, they're supposed to take care of this. Let's also, from the parent perspective, know that my child trusts me enough to know that somebody violated her sexually or him sexually. And they will come to me and say, this is it. Because I remember there was a story a few years back on the media on these boys who were being sexually abused in school, in boarding school. And one of the kids really kept crying to the parent and telling them, I do not want to stay in this school. And the parents were like, but why? This child just doesn't like this school. But if your child is talking, I feel you should listen. Because until we
and be open to some of the reasons, they might be refusing to go to school.
They might be refusing to go to school. Why? What is going on? Because they kept doing that over and over again until one child told the parent. And then now the person who was violating them was finally arrested. But by that time, he had sexually abused 17 kids. So it was like they waited for so long. So for us, for such kind of initiatives to work, they have to start from somewhere. Because if the case is not reported, then it means it never happened.
Absolutely. Awareness and being brave enough and open enough to have this conversation. Melvin, what are some of the other solutions as we head towards the polls that we can look to ensure that we are stopping some of these things before they happen?
So thank you. I think Doreen is really bringing that point closer home, especially when we know the history tells us, like, history will always remind us what happened. Like, when we remember, even during COVID, we saw a lot of attention, like, just given to COVID. And there was little attention for sexual and reproductive health. And there's also a possibility that even during this time, as we head to the elections, the polycare may not even be as vivid as we really would want us to appreciate it.
Yes.
Because simply too much attention will be given to elections and just people fighting the politicians and all that. But the first step, as she mentioned, is the parent, from the household. Let the families know that it is our responsibility to protect the people within our households. You know, the way you wake up one morning and you hear someone from your household has been injured or has been abused or has been molested because of negligence, you know. So from the household level, let's be really very careful and protect the people within our household. Number two, of course, we pray then and ask that the police will be very vigilant at this time. We have seen during election, women, children and girls bear the brunt of the violence that occurs or happens during election. So we are asking that this time round we are prioritizing the protection for women, our girls and our children. We do not want to see cases where a very innocent girl is killed from the balcony of their house, you know. And now for the teachers, as they release the kids, I know they also come from communities.
For sure.
And if they really know people, that some of the girls and the boys that belong to those communities, they should also, I think, maybe form some groups just to support those the school going, either at lower level or high level, so that we just help protect them from all those violence. And we also pray that, I know Kenya is religious. Our religious community has been at the forefront fighting some of these vices. But we are also asking that they can pray for this country to just have a peaceful country. And for the young people, we are praying that you shy away from any forms of violence, but engage in constructive conversations around politics.
Awesome.
Yes.
Doreen, what do you think as we conclude are some of the other solutions we could effect to ensure that we are having a better election season for our teenagers?
First of all, I'll start.
And also, keep in mind, you are a social media, because social media, I mean, advocate that is doing very well in that space. I'm sure there are ways that we can use it to ensure that we effect change.
Yes. Yeah, considering most of the misinformation starts on social media.
Right there.
So as we head into the election period, I want to first of all start with challenging the media. to, as much as we are talking a lot about politics, let us not forget that there will be life after August 10th.
For sure.
And after August 10th, we don't want to hear that 17 girls were raped somewhere or 21 boys were shot somewhere. We don't want that. We want to protect them. So bring those conversations. So if you can have like a conversation with even law enforcement to show that we have these things where we have a channel you can report. So that they know, at least they have the information out there that if something happens to me, I can report. I can trust a policewoman or a policeman in this particular context. The second thing is about us on social media, and most of the bigwigs on social media who most of the time drive the misconceptions, the hate messages, for them to, at this point, the politics time is usually very emotional for a lot of people. And people get very personal about politicians. Some of them I've never even met personally. So for them to be very neutral. As much as you love and support politician A, also be open-minded to listening to what politician B is saying. And don't be in that place where if they lose, then you're very angry and all that. You know, there's a way people support people to a point that they can drive themselves very crazy. So don't be that kind of person, because I think most of the time in social media we forget how big our voices are.
For sure.
Yeah, you might be followed by like 100,000 people and you're assuming they're not going to get impacted by this tweet, but that tweet actually makes them change their mind about a particular thing. So let us, the messaging that we're bringing out, let it be a message that is going to be very hopeful, very neutral, and a message that protects every Kenyan, because that teenager needs you. Because right now they can't vote on August 10th.
Yes.
And for the parents, I still go back to the parents. Because for us to end most of the problems we have when it comes to adolescents and teenage and young people, it has to go back to the parent. Like, as much as we parents say, we are working so much. Yes, you are working, but this is your child. This child needs you. They say, the Swahili saying that says, asiyefunzwa na mamake hufunzwa na ulimwengu. Don't let the ulimwengu be the teacher. Be the teacher right there from home.
Okay. Thank you so much.
I just wanted to add on the part of the media. I don't know whether we can have this number, maybe from the media spaces, all the media houses, just having a nag. I mean, like, insisting that reports call this number. If you witness or experience violence, report to this number or reach out on this number. And then for the young people, I mean, we know that the world is going digital currently. Just use the digital space for the right purposes. Don't use the space to abuse people, to insult others, but use the space, the digital platforms, to report some of those issues. And I think this will be really very helpful, because when I send a tweet or I send an Instagram, it's indicating that there's a violence in this place, someone has gone through this, then we can get the alert of the police and have the right procedures taken.
Yes, the right action taken. Thank you so much. We had Doreen Moracha and Melvin Oyo, experts in the field of sexual reproductive health, just shedding a light on some of the red flags, some of the problem areas, and of course how we can ensure that we are protecting our teenagers and adolescents in this time of the election. Thank you so much for making the time, for joining us. And of course, that draws Weekend Express to a close. My name is Trix Ingado. Do stay tuned to KTN News. Asante sana. That was short.